Found another schedule, which this Olympic thing is going on for, I think, the whole month of June. So this is a 1 hour podcast ride. I don't know if it's your cup of tea. I hope that we don't sleep later. This one. I'd rather use this one. No signal.
I'm toast.
Toast agad. Nagawa mo, baby.
I'm toast. I'm toast. I'm toast. No. Oh, nice. Nice. Hammer time.
I'm toast. Nice.
Right
Hammer
on.
time. I'm toast.
I'm hammer toast. Hammer time. Hammer time. Hammer time. Hammer time. Hammer time. Hammer time. Right on. Right on.
Right on. Hammer time. Nice.
No.
Oh, diba? Ready sila.
Right on. Nice. Right on. Right on.
Ulit, ha?
Right on.
Right on. Right on. Right on.
Right on.
Right on.
Nice. Hammer time. Hammer time.
We're very lucky today to have Sir Chris Hoy join us on the podcast, and this is a special edition of the podcast. It's the Olympic Virtual Series. Thank you very much for your time, Chris.
It's a pleasure, Greg. Good to speak to you. Whereabouts are you in the world just now?
And at the moment, I'm just tomorrow starts the Giro d'Italia, so I'm not actually obviously, as you know, I've retired now for a number of years, but I'm performance manager here, so looking after one of the teams here and helping out. So so it's really good to be able to connect with you from. I'm actually on a good time zone. Normally, I'm trying to do these podcasts from New Zealand and trying to catch everyone at odd hours. It's crazy. But no, I mean, I don't want to go through your whole palmares, but would be here for 45 minutes. But it was 7 Olympic medals, 6 golds. Been to in 4 Olympics. You've now shared the record with Sir Steve Redgrave. Is that correct?
I used to. It's now with Jason Kenny. So Steve Redgrave had 5 gold medals, and then I got 6, and then Jason Kenny is now matching my 6. So Jason's got 6 and a silver. So we're both kind of joint equal at the top at the moment. But I think, do you know what? I think his wife, Laura, she's got 4, and I'm tipping her to win 3 this time in Tokyo. I think she's going to leapfrog both her husband and me, and she's going to be the most successful British Olympian ever.
Incredible, though. Still incredible. And yeah, again, thanks so much for joining us. But so what we're here about is the Olympic Virtual Series, which is a fantastic initiative. It brings fans and athletes closer than ever together. The fans are going to be able to take part in group rides with athletes and basically interact with them directly. How important do you think it is to be able to interact with the fans, from an athlete's perspective? I mean, comparative-wise, online chatting versus, at a competition in real life. Like, do you find there's a large difference, or is it quite comparable?
I think it's more important than ever to have the interaction with fans now that, in a year where we've not been able to see any real competition with the fans there to support the athletes. So I think during the pandemic, more than ever, this virtual world, this ability to ride virtually with your fans and ride with your heroes, it's been incredible. And I think it's regardless of a pandemic, I think it is the way forward, and you feel that amount of engagement. You do a ride on a virtual platform next to one of your heroes, and you see them, and you can chat to them, and you feel it's crazy, but you feel as if you've actually ridden with them, even though it's just an avatar on the screen racing next to another avatar, because you know that somewhere in the world that Mark Cavendish or Laura Kenny or whoever it is riding in their garage and typing away on their computer. So it's a cool thing, and I use Zwift, and when I was told about it in the early days, I was quite skeptical about virtual cycling in general, and I was very old school, and I was like, I used to train on a turbo all the time. I didn't feel like I needed to have a screen with computer generated images. I didn't think it was something that I would be interested in. And one of my mates just kept pushing and saying, you got to try it. And I had a go, and I absolutely loved it. And it was, it really the penny dropped. And I've been a fan of Zwift ever since. I've been using it regularly for the last 2.5 years now.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. I totally agree with you. It's a fantastic scenario, and with the Olympic Virtual Series, it brings athletes from just all disciplines. Also, not only are we talking road cyclists, you'll see track cyclists on there, your mountain bike, for example, the BMXer gets on there, so it brings everyone together, and yeah, easy way to say g'day, their avatars above them, their name, and it's actually pretty cool with it, if they're the pro or not. So it's a really nice and you feel quite comfortable too. I feel like if you were sort of on the road and you met the person, you wouldn't I wouldn't really feel the need to go up and ride behind them and say hello and things like that. Whereas in the virtual cycling world, you can actually quite happily have a chat and then try and keep up if you can. Yeah,
exactly. I think it's such an inclusive form of cycling, and you speak to a lot of old school cyclists, and I admit that I was probably part of that group initially. And they're quite resistant to the idea of a virtual cycling world. They think it's something that's going to replace cycling in the real world, but it's not. To me, it's something that adds an extra dimension to cycling. Nothing will ever replace being out on your bike in the fresh air, racing in the real world. But this isn't trying to replace it. This is adding to it. And I think that having the opportunity to cycle, when it's dark outside, cold, there's ice, snow. You could be in different time zones. You can ride at times where it wouldn't be suitable or wouldn't be practical. To me, it is just the ideal complement to cycling in general. And I think that this Olympic virtual series, it's engaging with the fans, and it's bringing people together, and it's giving them a little sample of what it's like to compete in these events and how to train for these events.
Absolutely. The Olympic virtual series, it celebrates. It celebrates the values of inclusion and participation. These kind of mass start participation events that they're associated with the Olympic movement to help get more people on bikes, basically. And so, you can obviously see the movement forward. You can see that obviously from the old school riders that might be in our era, there was a resistance originally to this indoor cycling, but there's no question that virtual cycling can help boost cycling participation.
Oh, no question at all. And I think it's, as you say, it is inclusivity. It's making it accessible to far more people than would have been, able to cycle in the past. You talk about track cycling as an example. I was just super lucky that there was a velodrome in my hometown. Now, there was only one velodrome in the whole of Scotland, and it just so happened to be in the city that I lived in. Had there not been a facility there, I probably wouldn't have taken up track cycling. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you just now, as an Olympic champion in track cycling. So a lot of it is down to being close to facilities, having the right thing happen at the right time. But Zwift, it comes to you. So, of course, you'd still have to pay for an indoor trainer, but in relative terms, it's actually quite an affordable thing to set up. And it's reaching out to a whole different audience of cyclists, and I think it's great for the sport, because it could easily be a kind of channel in an avenue in for a different type of cyclist that we wouldn't have got in the sport in general. So I think it can bring people into the sport, it can bring people together, keep people fit and healthy, and just let people engage with the sport that they love.
I've got a bit of a tough one here. It's a tough answer, really, because, it's about predicting the future, mate. But where do you see virtual cycling going in the future? It's like, at the moment, it's, if we talk, are we going to be on a BMX track racing? Are we actually going to be on a velodrome racing? Where do you see virtual cycling going in the future?
Well, I think we see, if you look at esports on the whole, how fast they're growing and how much support they have, and how you can't ignore it. An old sort of dinosaur like me, I think, and the older generations, they might just sort of think, esports aren't real sports, but you can't ignore it. You can't ignore that engagement that kids have. And my question would be to a parent or to an older generation person: would you rather have your child sitting on a PlayStation with their thumbs moving, or would you rather have them sitting in front of a screen, pedaling furiously on a bike, getting proper exercise? So in terms of esports, there's no denying that has taken off massively. But in terms of virtual cycling, I think you're not replicating the activity, you are doing the activity. It's a great physical workout, just like the real world. So I can see it becoming, a sport that it's already an international sport, but I can see it becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And I guess the ultimate end goal for virtual cycling is to be, included in the Olympics, which might seem like a really surprising thing to say now, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 20, 30 years that's, the levels of simulation and everything else could be that it's an Olympic sport. You never know. You never know where these things are going to go, and that might sound like a crazy thing to say now, but 10, 20 years time, who knows?
Yeah, I agree. It's if we're talking about virtual sports, it's how far can you go? You look at Formula One drivers now and how much work they actually do with racing simulators. So it's not just it's super accurate. You feel the percentage of the gradients of this virtual cycling. You feel when somebody attacks, or it's you can see, obviously, the great thing about it is you know exactly the power and watts per kilogram, and you work out your functional threshold power. So all these things that were usually tested in a lab, or you needed to hire a sports scientist or some sort of specific coach to work that sort of thing out for you. Now you can actually just jump on and it'll spit out the numbers for you. The Olympic Virtual Series, because I'm just going to carry on from that, it contains workouts designed in collaboration with Olympians. They're designed to stimulate and sort of mimic different athletes' efforts for different disciplines of cycling. I know I've written a few myself for various people, but the first question I want to ask in regards to that is, in your training, do you use specific workouts structured in virtual cycling to better your track cycling, outdoor cycling? Do you use specific efforts on the trainer?
Yeah, I do. And although I'm retired now, I still like to test myself, and I still like to have a structure to my training, if you can call it that. But it's, I'm not competing, but I still want to make the most of the time I have. So I've got 2 young children, I've got work obligations, various things going on. I'm quite, very busy. So I might only have 40 minutes in a day to do a session. So I want to make the most of that. I don't want to just sit there and ride at the same pace the whole way through. I want to actually test myself. So I do design my own training sessions, because that's one of the great things about Zwift, is that you can create your own sessions, save them, and then come back to them time after time. And I love the fact with smart trainers, you don't have to keep changing gears and looking at the power meter. And in the old days, that's what you had to do. You had to sort of measure your effort just by using using the gears and the power you're putting through. But you can just set it to this program that will, you can keep pedaling the same cadence, and the resistance will kick in at the right time. It'll hold it for the right duration. It'll drop back down on the recovery phase. And it blew me away. I'd gone from riding this old cat-eye cyclo simulator back in the day. Lots of other turbo trainers are available, but that was the one we used back in the day. And it's so outdated now, and it's amazing how far on the indoor static trainers have come, but the smart trainers in particular. But yeah, I design my own programs. And so for the Olympic virtual series, it's great that there's going to be a Kieran workout, which I've helped to design, which is basically, it's not so much a training session I would have done for the Kieran, but it's more a simulation of the kind of effort you might experience on the track. And we thought, well, in an Olympic Kieran, you have 3 rounds. If you make it to the final, you qualify first round, semi-final, and final. And they last about 2 or 3 minutes. You obviously wind up behind the bike, and then the all-out sprint at the end. And we've kind of tailored these 3 efforts to mimic the real Kieran in the real world. So it's a kind of just about a 35-minute-ish session, 3 efforts within that, but they're big efforts. And it's all about how much you can put out in that last sort of 15, 20 seconds of each effort that really counts. So it's a very different type of session to the ones you might find on Zwift that are all based on your FTP and sub-maximal efforts. This is all about true 100% maximal efforts. So it's very much for the sprinters, but one for anybody that if they want to develop their speed, get a little taste of what it's like to ride in the Kieran.
That's brilliant, mate, because that basically answered my next question for me, because I was just going to get you to give us a rundown on your Kieran program. So it's one session, and within that session you've ramped up 2 or 3 minute efforts until it's like maybe like the last 90 seconds.
It works out. The final sprint is a simulation of the last lap, or just over a lap, so 15 seconds. So it goes from being percentages of your functional threshold power up to more than your FTP, and then it goes to a free ride for sort of 15 seconds where it's as fast, literally as much power as you can kick out. So it's not restricted by any relation to your FTP. It's just an all-out sprint. And there'll be clear guidelines, text on the screen as you go through the effort to explain what's coming, prepare for it. And this isn't a paced effort. This is everything you've got. See if you can hit the biggest number you've ever seen on your power meter in the next 15 seconds. And what's amazing is people assume, well, a 15-second effort, that's over, in the blink of an eye. It can't be that hard, and you're only doing 3 of them at the end of your wind up. But the damage that you can do, particularly for a sprint type athlete, and you don't have to be a sprint trained athlete, but if you have the kind of fast twitch muscle fiber types that you need to be a good sprinter, if you have that inside in your legs, then you can do a huge amount of damage in 15 seconds, and you can really feel it by the end of the session. And for me, my training is always about quality versus quantity. And even more so now that I've got so many things. I'm not a full-time athlete, and I've got to try and fit my training in around everything else. You make the most of it, you hit it hard, you get the benefit from that, and you rest and recover before the next session.
How brilliant is that, mate? And you think about, like, imagine they actually get to jump on one afternoon, and actually here is Sir Chris Hoy is lining up to have a crack at this session, like, wouldn't that just be the ultimate Olympic experience? It's like, I'm actually having a crack against him, it would be so cool. It's like, imagine, I'm sure that we could design a points race that's similar, we could design a scratch race that's similar, if we wanted to head down the track avenue, we could do all sorts of these efforts.
Yeah, and I think in the future, to me, the future is being able to design all different kinds of simulations of different types of cycling. And it's, for me, a velodrome would be quite an obvious one where you could have races where you could sort of sign up and log on and see who's live at that time and race against people, and you can race in different categories, and you could I think there's so many possibilities for virtual cycling, and it's only going to get better in terms of the graphics, in terms of the simulation, and in terms of how they estimate your frontal area, the resistance that you're pushing against, because at the moment it's mainly about your weight, and then they've got your height and your height and weight, and then use that to base your resistance from that. But I think over time there'll be ways of making it even more accurate. And even with virtual reality, stick a set of goggles on, look around, and you're in the velodrome or a mountain bike trail or wherever it is, going up the Zwift or whatever it is. But there's so many possibilities, and it's so exciting, because if you think about virtual cycling, it's really just still in its infancy now, and yet it's so good already. You think, in 10 years' time, where could it be, and how amazing could it be by then?
Yeah, it's true, mate. Like, because there's already many people using virtual cycling as a pathway kind of thing, also like a talent ID. Like, for example, there's a couple of World Tour teams that after vigorous weeks of testing and competitions and workout completions, 2 lucky riders actually get to sign a contract with a World Tour team. So, it's a talent ID platform. Also, not only do we get to race with the best, but we also get to literally talent ID someone that could actually propel them into a sport, and either whether it's e-sport or in real life sport for the future of their career.
Yeah, and it's for that reason alone, I think it's such a great addition to cycling, because it's just opening up doors. It's making opportunities arise. In the past, it's so hard for people to get their first step on the ladder. How do you get to a point where you are able to get sponsorship to pay for your bikes, your equipment, your travel? You have to. It's chicken and egg scenario. But with Zwift, you could just do the hard graft without any backing, get noticed by winning some races, and then as you say, if you win the academy, if you get you get given an amazing prize of a entry into a pro tour team, then the sky's the limit. But I look at motorsport. You mentioned motorsport earlier as an example. Years and years ago, I think it was about 2008 or 2007, there was GT Academy, which was kind of gamers to racers. Same sort of thing, where kids that had never even driven a car on track before were great at playing on the video games. They raced in the virtual world. The winners then got taken onto this TV show, and then raced in real cars on real tracks. And the winner from that got a professional contract, and he went on and got into the podium at Le Mans, and he's now still racing at the highest level in GT cars all around the world. And there's been multiple people that have done it since, but the first guy, Jan Mardenborough, an amazing journey from this kid in Cardiff sitting on his sofa playing video games to being on the podium at Le Mans in the 24-hour race. So you see how that, if you have the right support and the right tuition and the right way to get talent ID from as many people as possible, if you can reach out to a much bigger, much wider audience, then you're going to find, just by the maths of it, you will find some incredible specimens from, a part of the world that you might not have ever seen before or had the opportunity to access before.
Because you remember, like the old AIS, they used to take a sports scientist and a coach, and they'd take them around the schools, and they'd take like a portable cat eye, like you were talking about, and then get them on there and then get them to do a 30-second wind gate or something like that. And that was their way of doing talent ID back in those days. It was like, let's see what sort of, and like now look at the difference and the variation. You can almost specialize what type of rider that person's going to be, before you even put them on the track or before you even test them in a lab. So I was just going to talk to you a little bit about the motorsport, actually, because I know you dabble in it, and I'm just wondering, are you going to enter the Gran Turismo Olympic Virtual Series?
Well, yeah, it's. I think at the moment now, my motorsport is a hobby. It's a fun thing to do, and certainly on two wheels, I have definitely retired. So it's not that I'm not competitive anymore, but I just enjoy the motorsport now. Is just a chance to have a bit of fun, and the competitive element is great. But yeah, it's all in this real world on four wheels, and then it's hard on Zwift when I'm riding on Zwift in the virtual world, because I try not to be competitive, but every now and again you do find yourself getting just randomly. You're going up a hill and there's someone that's been with you for a while, and you this thing, I might just stick an extra 0.1, 0.2 of a watt per kilogram on, just enough to sort of get a bit of fresh air. And you do that, and then you notice their numbers go up a little bit too, and you think, yeah, he's following me, right? Okay, it's on, and then it just gets crazy, and you start what started out as a steady ride, and you're absolutely sweating buckets, and your face is purple when you're finished, and you come through, and my wife goes like, "What have you been doing in there? You're gonna have a heart attack."
I've often been on the ergo, just going, "What are you doing, Henderson? Just slow down, mate. You do not need to go this hard." No, but so what I was mentioning was the Olympic Virtual Series. There's a Gran Turismo event, also GT Sport event. So I play a lot of Gran Turismo myself, and I follow, how you were talking about these guys that have gone from, the GT Academy all the way through to racing. So I follow a guy, Igor Fraga, and he's one of the best on Gran Turismo, and he now races Formula 3, and I think he just won that championship in Formula 3. So it was like, when I found out that they were doing a Gran Turismo Olympic series. But the thing with it, I think it's time trial mode only. You don't actually get to line up against 20 other competitors at the same time. So I was just wondering if you're going to have a crack on the Gran Turismo.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it, but do you know what? I'm pretty terrible on the sims. I did quite a lot of practice in simulators before Le Mans in 2016. So to get, you're traveling out to a racetrack in some part of Europe for the European Le Mans series. You've never been there before. You haven't got time or the opportunity to test on the track. So you've got to learn the track in the virtual world. And I find it really hard. I guess it's so much of, you realise so much of the feedback you get is through the car, through the seat of your pants, through the steering wheel, and you feel the car, and you don't get that in the kind of basic simulators. But what I've seen is the standard of racing at high and international level in simulators, on the GT Academy or whatever it is, it's incredibly high. And these guys, as you've mentioned already, can make that transition into F3, into GT racing, whatever it is. So it's very competitive. And yeah, I think you go in there thinking, I'm okay on the games and stuff, I'll have a shot. And then you realise you're miles off the pace, probably more off the pace in the virtual world than you would be in the real world.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, so I've always wondered that actually, because and the other thing about the virtual world would be the absence of fear. You can come into this corner, and if you miss your braking point, it's like, oh well, I'm off the track. But if you miss your braking point in the real world, it's not so much.
It hurts. It's such a good point. You learn a track, and there's corners that you don't even think about that are, a fourth gear flat corner, no problem at all. And then you turn up and you pull out the pit lane, and you head towards this corner for the first time. And in your brain, because the simulators are very sophisticated, they are accurate, but they're usually set up with simulating a car with low fuel load, with fresh tires, with a certain ambient temperature. And if you go in there and your tires are a little bit worn, or they're still a bit cold, or you've got a full fuel tank or whatever extra weight, it all affects the handling of the car. And you can't just, your brain just will not let you turn in full throttle onto a fourth gear corner when there's a wall on the outside, and it's this mind over matter, this kind of battle you have. And all you've got to do is keep your foot flat to the floor and turn in and do it. But I have a self-preservation mode, which pulls your right foot up a little bit, just a little bit each time, and it takes a lot of courage. Most of the TV coverage of F1 or any motorsport, really, it doesn't convey just how fast, how terrifying, how intense it is within the cockpit. All you see is the hands doing this and that, and it all looks very kind of easy. You think, well, how hard can it be? But I've got so much respect for the professional racing drivers, and the skill they have, the bravery they have, and the consistency they have. They can do it lap after lap, and be within millimeters of where they need to be. And you see it on the city circuits with concrete walls just off the track. That's when it gets really interesting, when there's no room for error at all.
When you take your career, and it's been, if you think of it, I'm just trying to, add assimilation there. Like, you've definitely had to win some bike races around finding some small gaps, that's for sure. The one I remember from your Olympic, like your mini Olympics, I think was 2012, the Olympic Kieran final. For me, was absolutely incredible. I was there and watching it, and with a lap to go, I thought, he's out. It's he's not going to. There was no way through. There was no way through. Can you remember, like, or do you go into autopilot, or how does that work? Like, can you talk us through like the last couple of laps of that Olympic final?
So the Olympic final, not the one in Melbourne, not the Kieran where I went up the inside, or the Olympics in London, you mean?
There was the one where you went up. Was that a Worlds? Was it?
Well, the World. So in 2012 World Championships in Melbourne, I was basically wrong place. I'd made a complete stuff up of the tactics. I was in fourth place at the bell. Max Levy was at the front, going full gas. Then there was Simon van Veldhoven was on Max's wheel, sort of sweeping. Jason Kenny behind him, And the key thing was this: it wasn't just racing for a world title and a rainbow jersey. This was the selection for who gets the place in London 2012 for Britain. There was one place per nation in the sprint and the keirin, and I had to beat Jason. So, and that's kind of why I was in the position I was in, because instead of just focusing on trying to win this race, I was too preoccupied with Jason and thinking I've got to stick with him, and then I'm going to make a move, and once I'm ahead of him, I know. And he was the same. He let the gap go because he was worrying about me. And before we knew it, they got the German on the front going full gas at the bell, and it was like we're both in a lot of trouble here. And 100 meters to go, I was in fourth, up above the blue line, and there's no way I was going to make it around the outside. Yeah. And it was, maybe 70 meters to go, still in fourth place. And I thought, I just had this weird feeling I had a feeling that Simon was going to flick out because he was looking a bit flicky, and I think he was waiting for Jason to come past. So I went down the track, up the inside, heading towards the back wheel of Max Levy, just as Van Velhoven flicked out, and it happened. It was like it couldn't have happened at a better time. He just came outside the red, opened the gap. There was a clear gap, and I rolled past him. And because I'd been sat on the wheel in the slipstream for the whole way, I had this momentum, and I pipped Levy in the line by a tyre's width, and I got the gold medal. And it was people talk about that race, but it was probably the one I'm most embarrassed about because it was the worst. It's a kind of classic. You should not be in fourth place. You should be outside the top three at the bell. Don't get stuck at the back. You'll never make it through. Never go up the inside because it's a suicide mission. You'll end up, catching a wheel, or something will come down on you, and it's going to cause carnage. And it worked out. You do that 100 times and it fails 99 times, but it just so happened it worked. I won the race, got the world title, rainbow jersey, and the place in the British team at the Olympics in London, which went on to win that as well. And it was one of those moments in sport where you can do all the work and you can be as prepared as you like, but you have to take the opportunities, and you have to have your kind of sixth sense for gaps and opportunities that open up. And that was, without doubt, I've got it wrong many times in my career, but that was one time I got it right, and it worked out.
It was great to watch for me, because I've known you as a sprinter keirin rider for so long, as that guy that just had that progressive power, and it would accelerate and literally people couldn't even come past you, But then I think the reason it stuck out in my mind, and probably a lot of other people's minds, was you did it totally different, and you were just saying now it's the wrong way of doing it. Sure, we agree, and but it just looked amazing. And like the fact that you only had 50 meters to get past Levy, and let's be honest, Levy's doing 70 something k an hour. You know what I mean? It's like you've only got a small amount of time to get past. It's that was incredible. And then
I couldn't believe my luck, honestly. It was one of those races where I was just like, oh dear. And I got a bit of a telling off from the coaches afterwards. They said, well, you were a lucky boy there, and but when you get backed into a corner, to be able to find your way out of it, that's at least you showed initiative, and at least you managed to make it work. But don't do that again, kind of thing.
So your first Olympics was in 2000, is that correct?
That's right, yeah, Sydney. I was there with you, and you rode the team sprint.
Team sprint, that's right.
And was it Quealy? He was the minute man or something. He was so fast at the kilo. He won the kilo, and did you finish second in the team sprint?
Yeah, so he was, outside chance of a bronze medal. And went up early. I think he was about to be sixth or seventh last to go, and he did a 101, first ever time to get that close to or that fast for him, personal best time. And it really kind of set a ripple off, and it affected, I think, maybe the mindset of certainly of Arno Tournal, who was last to go, and he was the favourite by miles. And everyone was talking about what Tournal was going to win the race with, what time he was going to do, but he was going to get the gold medal, of course, but how fast would he go? And I think it just rattled Tournal at the time that Jason did, and he was distracted by it because he kind of changed his gear. He went for a bigger gear apparently, and he attacked it way too hard, and he blew apart. And I remember sitting in the stands watching this kilo unfold, and just being amazed that Jason was going to win a bronze or silver at least. And then, we got to the last rider to go. He was guaranteed a silver, and I thought, well, that's amazing. A silver medal is incredible. And then Tournal blew up in the last lap, and Jason won the gold. And it was this moment of just genuinely, that was a real light bulb moment for me personally, because I suddenly thought, well, before then, the Olympic champions were they were different breeds. They were from different countries. We didn't
Yes.
have any Olympic gold medalists in our country, apart from Chris Boardman, but no sprinters. It was almost like they were cut from a different cloth. They were kind of destined for greatness from the day they were born. And here was Jason, who was, just Jason, teammate, a normal guy. He'd taken up cycling in his mid-20s. Here he was, age 30, 5 years after he'd started cycling professionally, winning an Olympic gold medal. And suddenly it dawned on me, well, if he can do it, maybe I can do it too. And it was a really important moment for me. And to have him as well in the team sprint doing the anchor leg behind gave me huge confidence the next day. And we went on, to win the silver medal, which was a massive thing for us too.
So, but then you switched yourself to the kilo, didn't you? Because I remember for many years there you were like the kilo man, like untouchable, and you were coming in the Olympics in 2004. You won the Olympics kilo there in world record time, and I think I just remember watching the kilo. And like there's about 4 guys in a row broke the world record, and you're sitting there, you're waiting, like holy smokes, they're all breaking the world record. So the only way I can get a gold medal here is to break another world record.
That was the most intense moment of my whole career, and I think once I got through that day, that evening, I used to recall that moment time and time again to get me through tough races or intense moments. So having to sit there and watch the world record being broken 3 times before I got on the track, and the only way I got through it was actually working with Steve Peters, our psychologist. So 3 weeks before the Olympics in Athens, we were in our final training camp, and he came to see me, and I hadn't really worked with Steve much at all before that point. And he said, look, I just want to pose one scenario to you. What are you going to do if someone breaks the world record right before you go? You're going to be last off. You're going to have to see them perform, before you get up there. How are you going to cope with that? And I was like, well, I just won't think about it. And he said, well, if I say to you right now, don't think about a pink elephant, what's the first thing that you do? And this pink elephant sort of popped in my head. And he said, the point is you can't say you're not going to think about something. You have to choose what you want to think about, and that will displace any negative or distracting thoughts. So the one thing you want to think about is your perfect race in your head. Visualize the perfect race over and over and over again. Whenever you feel stressed, whenever you have any anxious thoughts between now and the race itself. So I just used to visualize this race for the next 3 weeks, 1 minute's worth of concentration whenever I got slightly stressed about anything. And then on the night itself, I was just visualizing this perfect race over and over and over again. And then, Shane Kelly, then Stefan Nimke, then Arnold Tourneau all broke the record. And by that point, I knew they'd done it, but I didn't care. I was so focused on what I was going to do and the process of how to do it, and not worrying about the outcome, that I was able to get my best performance out. And it was the strangest feeling. People talk about being in the zone and the state of flow, and that, when everything just seems to work. And that was the best example of it in my whole career in Athens. I couldn't feel my legs. I just kind of flowed around the track, and it was one of those magical moments when you cross the line and you look up and you see your name with the number 1 next to it and Olympic record.
That's awesome. So, that's just such a great lesson for anyone listening, any aspiring athlete. And I've got a really good friend, Daniel Loader, who's a swimmer from Dunedin, my hometown, and he used to always say to me, all he used to think about time and time again was doing a personal best, because there's only about 15% of athletes at an Olympic Games who can actually come out and perform and do a personal best, just because of the pressures of an Olympic Games. Or, there's so many other things that go into an Olympic Games, like the village isn't quite like used to home, your training scenario isn't quite exactly the way you're used to training, transport to and from the track isn't quite exactly the same. But if you can get there and swim a personal best, the rest take cares of itself. And I just remember Daniel saying, and exactly in 1996 he did that in the 200, and he says, if I can win the 200, because he was always a 400 metre swimmer, if I can win the 200, I'll win the 400. And then he swam PBs in both, two Olympic gold medals, and it's like, just that sort of rung with me too. It's like, okay, I didn't have your greatness at the Olympic Games, but I still, whenever I came to compete, I always rose to the occasion, always rode better than people would think I would at the Olympic Games, just because I was like, all I have to do is ride my bet in a PB. Results I'm not even worried about a result right now, because that's what's going to happen as a result of my personal best or whatever happened.
It's such a great point, and it's such a great lesson for younger riders too, because it's so easy to get caught up in what your rivals are doing and what your teammates are doing and measuring yourself against them. And particularly in the younger years, I think when you're coming through the ranks, to be psyched out by other people. But all you've got to, you by definition, if you've done your best, you can't do any better. And equally, some days you might win with a substandard performance, and you shouldn't be happy with a gold medal at a smaller race if you haven't done your best. You know what I mean? It really is all about doing your best, and it takes away the pressure. It takes away, Steve used to talk about process versus outcome, not focusing on the fear of failure or what it would feel like to win. People talk about the motivation of the gold medal. I never thought about the gold medal. I never thought about winning or how I would feel when I crossed the line. I only ever thought about the process of what I was going to do, how I was going to do it to the best of my ability. And as you said, so few athletes perform personal bests when it really counts. And it's, people talk about dealing with pressure and rising to the occasion. It's not, I don't think it's so much about rising to the occasion. It's more about not underperforming. It's people get psyched out so easily. It's if you can just do what you've trained to do, what you know you can do to the best of your ability, you're going to be there or thereabouts.
No, I totally agree, and I tell a lot of my athletes the same thing. It's like, you know what you're capable of, like, just get out there and trust in the process. I think that's another key that we could take away from this, is like, you really just trust in the process. You've done the work, now put it on the boards or wherever you are, or in your sprint final or your final climb up Alpe d'Huez or whatever it happens to be. And we can even relate that back to virtual cycling. It's like, you've done the work, you've done your FTP tests, you've done your sprints, you've done your workouts, and now you're lining up in one of these virtual Olympic series. It's like, as long as you've done the work, you can still put out your best performance, and that's all you can ask from yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I've always felt I got confidence from being prepared. And, if you can look yourself in the eye in the mirror and say that you've done everything within your powers to be prepared for that race or that day, then you can relax. I mean, it's almost like studying for an exam or whatever. Not that I ever did get that prepared for exams, but if you can arrive on race day knowing that you have given 100% in every effort of every session leading up to that championship, then you accept the result. You shake the guy's hand. If you come second or third or fourth, you shake the winner's hand and you accept the better man won. But the thing that I could never sort of consider would be not giving my best in training, not being fully committed, and then arriving at the Olympics and coming something other than first, and then wondering for the rest of my life, well, I wonder if I'd done that differently, if I'd committed a bit more in training, or if I hadn't gone on that stag do, or if I hadn't, if I'd committed harder in training for that training camp, I wonder if I could have won that gold medal. I didn't want to have those kind of doubts or questions in my head afterwards. So I thought, you either do it or you don't do it. 100% or nothing. Right, let's go for this and see what happens.
Mate, totally agree. It's been a great chat. I just want a couple of fun little facts before we go for the listeners. I'm sure everybody's interested in this, but during competition, in the real world, peak power for 5 seconds, what were we looking at?
Well, 5 seconds, even within 5 seconds, I would have peaked and then come off the peak. So the peak only lasts for about 2 seconds, and I could tell you that was about 2,500 and something, 2,540-ish. But that was on the track. I can almost hit 2.2 now, 2.19 something recently on a watt bike. But 2.5 something is my PB.
Very nice. So, and you find a stationary bike, an indoor bike, you find it's harder to get out the watts? Is there a different technique that you use, or is it just maybe because you didn't do so much now and maybe you haven't got obviously quite the performance capacity that you had a couple of years ago?
Yeah, no, I'm 45 years of age now, mate. I'm well over the hill, so any chance of hitting 2.5 plus is gone. But I think it's actually probably easier on a static bike because you don't have to worry about your position on the bike, or you don't have to worry, on a track bike, you are trying to get a maximum power, but you're also focused on being as aero as possible. And what people forget, I think people compare numbers to other people too much. Use numbers to compare to yourself, so you can see what you were like last week, last month, last year, and see progression from that. But don't worry about what other people are doing numbers wise, because they can have a complete, even in the same weight, they can have a completely different body shape to you, and therefore, you know, a different drag coefficient. But yeah, I think on a static bike, like a walk bike, a sturdy indoor bike, you can really kind of give it big licks and not worry about your technique, and you can hit a big number. But on the track, I think it's probably harder to get a really high number because you've got to be in that position on the bike.
And I'll always remember a photo of you in the leg press machine, and you had the thing just stacked to the limit, mate. There was no more room for any more plates on there, and then you had little Shane Sutton sitting on the top there, just to add an extra 60 kilos or 70 kilos. What were you leg pressing there, mate?
Oh, that was over six. I think it was about 630 or 650 for reps. I think it was about 8 reps. But it was, leg press is one of these things. You know, the leg press looks cool when you can stack all the weights on, but really the squat is the one. It's less impressive. You can only lift maybe a quarter or a third of what you can lift in a leg press machine, but it's far more important an exercise. But the leg press is for show. That kind of, it's a crowd pleaser, but it's all about the angle of your, you know, the depth of your knee and how acute the angle is at your knee. So if you go quite shallow, you can lift you could lift 1,000 kilos, but if you're coming all the way in and properly bending your knees, then it's a lot harder.
If you're making it race specific or in depth specific to a pedal stroke, then yeah, of course it's going to be a lot different. But it looks quite a good photo actually. All right, mate. Hey, really appreciate your time, and we'll wrap it up there. Yeah, no, it's been a great chat, mate. I would love to. I could have chatted forever about all the Olympics, mate, because I was at every single one of them, and yeah, some good, some bad for me, but yeah, it's been an honour to chat to you, mate, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Greg. Yeah, great to chat, and yeah, I hope you have a great time at the Giro, and yeah, maybe see you in the virtual world sometime soon, or hopefully in the real world sometime soon.
Absolutely, mate. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Maybe you can play this again later and listen to it. Maganda siya. Madami kang matututunan and relearn and refresh. Yeah. Easy right now. Ikot-ikot lang. I think we have 17 minutes to go here. Try to finish this so I can have I think I can have the Olympic jersey. I don't know, I'm not sure. Let's see. In 16 minutes time. Agree ako sa mga nag-chat niya kanina. Sana hindi ako makapiright. Sayang naman. enjoyed that podcast. Chris Boy, UK Olympian for the Korean. Yes. Okay, pagod na. So I did 3 workouts today. Just crazy. But that's okay. I need to lose weight. So I have last 3 minutes to go. I'm just taking it easy. Trying to cool down in a bit. Finish na. And then we'll post this Olympian jersey. If we finish this off. I did this ride a while ago also, but I stopped at 35 minutes because I needed to go and join another race. Dahil na pa ako iitak sa pawis na pumunta sa mata ko. Nakakaubos siya ng energy na magano-gano. I think next time I need a headband. Headband. Nakainis. Parang walang kamatayan ganun yung pawis na nakainis. So I'm losing out my gear now. Just relaxing. Putting down. 90 seconds to go. It's good. It's good, right? I learned a lot today. Definitely beats. Ganda rin yung workout kanina ng Pride Ride. So they have these events for the whole month of June. Check it out on their Zwift Companion Ride app, Zwift Companion app. It's separate from your Zwift app. You can download it. 44 seconds to go. So this one is time-based. Time-based yung training. Wala namang kilometers, I think. So just finishing it. Wala na yung RPM ko. Testing cadence yan, wala. Na-disconnect. Puro tayo power today. Yes, we did it! The 2021 Virtual Series Kit. Wow, and we get the bike. I didn't know that, sorry. So let's check it out. Let's check out the official bike of the Olympics. I like it. This is awesome. Let me see. Alright. Okay, stop ka na. Wait. Ang signal na lahat. Okay, what? We call that virtual strap. Okay, so that's yan yung nakuha ko kaninang Pride Ride. The jersey. So let's see the jersey that we got today. I believe it is right here. There you go. Okay. So let's see the new bike that we have. New frame that we have. Let's see its stats. Wow. Weight is very good. Oh, really. Nice. Look at that. That is cool. Pakakyatan ata ito. Pakakyatan. Love it. Alright, let's use it. Let's use it for the last 200 meters. Here we go. So you get this. That's a pretty good deal. You get a bike for this. So that's the whole ride. I get approximately 2 slices of pizza. Malaki ba yun? Maliit? Small pizza or big pizza? I don't know. What is the size of that 1.8 pizza? Finish the ribbon. Awesome! Save it. Save it. Diba? Okay, diba, guys? Alright. Hi everyone! Thank you for coming to the stream. I hope you can join me again. Thank you for all your support. If you like the stuff that I give you, you like the views, you like to watch it, do subscribe and like. Magandang pogi points sa aking channel at meron akong konting allowance sa aking pagdadaktak dito. Okay? Dahil wala naman akong trabaho sa gym. Dahil na walang trabaho, ito na muna extra kahit 1 cents lang. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Charles, Marilyn, Alfie, Will, Darius, and Spaghetti for coming in. So, bye everyone. That's it for today.
Come on.